Deshawn Jackson and Delaware State. We discussed them having a pipeline from the West Coast. Obviously, Deshawn being from California, having those ties, having coached there as well. And it seems to have started to work here. Delaware State has a commit from a Michigan quarterback transfer, Anthony Arnou, who comes from Pasadena, California, and now is committed to Delaware State, and DeSean Jackson. Coach Fred, we've talked about that California pipeline in the past. Now we see Anthony Arnou, who started out at Fresno State. I believe he went JUCO at Pasadena Community College off the top of my head. Transferred to Michigan, didn't see any action, and now has transferred to Delaware State. Coach, what are your thoughts on this?
Let me ask you first, baby, man. What are your thoughts on that graphic, man? I don't know if I'm really digging the fairy wings.
Interesting. Interesting graphic, nonetheless, with the hornet wings in the background. Little ghetto Photoshop there. But Coach, your thoughts on the Michigan quarterback transfer headed to Delaware State with DeSean Jackson?
I mean, for the shock value, man, I think it's a big thing. Anytime you can create, chatter about your program, I think that's a good thing. That's positive. The only thing that I would, now question is, you see that knee brace on his knee. How do you keep from getting another knee brace put on the other knee? Because I haven't seen them say, or make graphics or put out for any of those big guys up front. Again, you can have all of us you want. And when I say us, I'm talking me and you, skill guys. But if you don't have those guys in the trenches, man, I don't care where he came from. I don't care where he transferred in from. It's going to be tough for that, for that young man to succeed. But creating buzz, I think they did that with this.
Definitely creating buzz indeed. And Arnou coming from Pasadena, California. I didn't see any time at Michigan, but obviously he has an arm to him, and we'll get to see him in action at Delaware State. Whether he competes and starts at Delaware State is another question. But like you mentioned, Coach Fred, I think ultimately the trenches as well, very important. I don't know if we've seen a ton of action and from DeSean Jackson landing any lineman transfers or any lineman recruits. But definitely nice to see Arnou transferring to Delaware State. I got to ask you, Coach, is DeSean Jackson creating a big pipeline from California to Delaware State like we talked about? Are we starting to see this come to fruition a little bit?
I think so. The big trick now, though, you get the kids from the left coast to come all the way to the right coast. Now he's going to have to, keep them there.
Right.
Cali living is completely different than Delaware living, and I haven't lived in either one of them, but I'd be willing to bet my bottom dollar that Cali living is just a little bit different from Delaware living. So, keeping those kids focused, happy, locked into why they came across the country, across all the time zones, is going to be key. You don't want a mass exodus before you even get a chance to kick off your season.
That's a great point, Coach Fred. And here's DeSean just doing some off-season workouts and dancing with his team here. But that's a great point, Coach Fred, that you mentioned about DeSean Jackson. You got to hold it all together when it comes time to that season. One thing I wanted to show you and get your take on talking about DeSean Jackson, Skip Bayless came out and he said he does believe in DeSean Jackson. He'd stake his career on it. Take a listen to this, and Skip Bayless kind of talking about those who have praised DeSean Jackson, some of his mentors. Take a listen.
I first heard that DeSean Jackson had been hired as the head coach at Delaware State. My reaction was, DeSean? Seriously? But my man Lil Wayne knows DeSean much better than I do. I know him a little. And Wayne texted me back that he wasn't really surprised by this hire because to him, DeSean has always been into the strategic side of football. DeSean has a quote-unquote interesting but knowledgeable take on the game. Translation, thinks outside the box with high football IQ. That DeSean has always been, and I quote Wayne, super inquisitive, and that he'll surround himself with coaches who either have been head coaches or coordinators or have high coaching experience. But for me, the clincher was that Wayne was told that two men had gotten in touch with the powers that be at Delaware State and had closed this deal by vouching for DeSean. Those two men, Andy Reid and Deion Sanders. So then I subsequently read in an interview that Andy Reid said, I would stake my career on Deshawn's success at Delaware State. Whew. When I read that, I said, okay, I'm all in on Deshawn coaching Delaware State, even though at age 38, his only coaching experience was this past season at Woodrow Wilson High School out here in the LA area. But if Deion Sanders vouched for you, I'm not going to bet against you.
Interesting comments from Skip. I like to hear it. Coach Fred, I got to get your thoughts and opinions on Skip Bayless's comments there. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts. Go ahead.
Man, that was the first I'd heard the Lil Wayne bit. That was interesting in itself. Again, Coach Reed, Coach Prime, those guys pick up the phone for you. But again, and again, we're not taking anything away from Coach Jackson. We hadn't coached a game yet. But Bailey, and I know, man, it's part of the world. It's the way the world is now. Who can pick up the phone for you? Those two pick up the phone. I don't care what other application you had in there. You didn't have a chance because those two picked up the phone. The only issue is going to be when those two aren't there, what is, Coach Jackson going to do? How is he going to react?
Sure.
He's still relatively young in the business, in the profession, on the coaching side of things. So that first interaction, when it gets heated with him trying to correct a kid, what's his going to be his style? If he's a yeller, if he's a cusser, if he's like our boy JB, and the kid comes back at him, the kid comes back at him, JB style, how is he going to react? It's a fine line early in your career when you're dealing with young people because you're still, relatively close to them. So you talk discipline, you talk strategy, how is he going to do all that? So again, I'm wishing him success. It's not the best starting position because of the program. So I don't think I don't think the masses should expect HBCU national champion 2025. I don't think that's in the cards, but anything's possible.
Yeah, I agree. And with Delaware State having won 2 games in the last 2 seasons, I think, it's definitely a rebuild process. Not going to look for any national championships, or not going to expect it at least. The last thing I got to ask you, Coach Fred, on the Delaware State front, Deshawn Jackson hired Clinton Portis, former NFL star running back, as his running back coach. Do you have any thoughts on this? I think it's a good hire for Deshawn at Delaware State.
Again, it creates buzz. I think it gives you shock value in recruiting. I don't think let's put it this way. I don't know if there's any parent, dad, uncle that don't know the name Clinton Portis. So when you talk about recruiting running backs, when you talk about putting your style together, I think at that point now you've got names that you can send places to recruit and actually, win some of those battles that might be tight. Clinton Portis, I think that was a great shock hire. Now, if he can translate his career into a coaching career, I think that'll be a big-time hire for him. Again, and think about this. He's a Mississippi kid, Clinton Portis, but basically a Miami native as well. Delaware is light years away from Miami, man. Light years away from Miami.
True.
So, will he be able to hold on to Clinton as well? So, a lot of questions there.
A lot of questions indeed. Definitely something to keep your eye on. But if anything, the hire creates buzz, especially in recruiting, like you mentioned, at this day and age. This will definitely turn some heads. I don't know how many people my age or recruits coming out or my age really know Clinton Portis. You'd be surprised at how ignorant some younger people are. But nonetheless, I think it's a great hire for Deshawn and Delaware State. Something to watch going forward.